Today we're talking about something that will eventually happen to everyone. I call it the fall that changes everything. That is when someone in your family either falls, can't get up, they got a diagnosis, they end up in the hospital, and it's all very sudden and unexpected, and nobody knows what to do. My name's Allison Newlon. I'm the broker owner of Platinum Properties of Florida in the greater Tampa Bay area. And I am here with two of my friends, Julie Cook and Nikki Flynn. And I'll let them tell you what they do really quick, and then we'll talk about the fall that changes everything. Julie?
My name is Julie Cook. My husband and I own a company called Generational Transitions, and we help seniors who need to move into senior living communities, whether it's independent living, assisted living, or even memory care. We can help you find the right community with the care level that you need.
And Nikki?
My name is Nikki Flynn, and I'm a paralegal, and I focus on being able to help people have the right proper documents in place before an emergency happens. So basically, that is estate planning.
Estate planning. So, we're just living life. We're cruising through life. We're doing our regular stuff as a Gen Xer, raising a family, taking them to and from school, all the stuff that we do as parents, as adults. But now our adult parent has a situation and we weren't expecting it because, they're our parent. They had taken care of us. And now it's time for us to take care of them. And this happened to me about 2 years ago. I got that phone call. My mom was living at a house all by herself. And, it's starting to become time. We were starting to have the conversations. Mom, what do you want to do next? Where do you want to go? But she didn't want to make those decisions yet. She wasn't ready to do that. And they're very hard decisions to make, but we had to make the decisions very, very quickly because she did fall. She couldn't get up, ended up in the hospital, ended up in skilled nursing for 6 to 8 weeks, and then went straight into assisted living without ever going and living back at home. And then I had to deal with all of the things in the house and what do we do with the house and how do I get her comfortable? Where's she going to go? All of that very quickly. And I had to make sure that the paperwork was in order. God forbid that something happened to her, that the paperwork was in order for the house so that I could make decisions, power of attorney and all of that kind of stuff. And so I kind of made it a mission of mine I had to navigate it, but then I started to have clients and friends have to navigate that as well. And it dawned on me that the Gen Xers were now going through the stage of life with their parents and they have no guidance. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. And I started to figure out, I've got to find people that can help with this process. And so I went to a senior event in St. Petersburg, Florida. I met these two ladies and they both had tables there. They were doing their own thing. And I said, this is a real good idea that we can get together and we can talk about this and try and help people navigate this. And they were on board to do it. And so I want to ask Julie, the fall that changes it all. I mean, what happens when you get a call from a family like this? I mean, what are they doing? What are they feeling? What do you do to help them?
So when that phone call comes, is I feel a lot of empathy because oftentimes, like you said, they're going along, they're living life. Suddenly they get a phone call that mom or dad fell, and what do I do? Many times they're out of town, out of state. They're dealing with doctors and hospitals and insurance and social workers.
Right.
So it's almost like, okay, first we have to slow down, take this one step at a time. Do they need surgery? Okay, then what's the next step? So initially my role almost is like a counselor at first, to be like,
Mm.
okay, let me guide you through the steps. Let's get through the medical part of it, and then let's figure out what we're going to do afterwards. One thing to consider that most people don't is the situations are almost always very fluid. Ideally, they go to the hospital, maybe they go to rehab and they come home, or even they go on to a senior living community, but often there's bumps in the road. And so that's something I feel like you need to be prepared for up front is we're going to ride a little bit of a roller coaster. But
Mhm.
when you have a professional beside you, it's okay because they're going to help you on the roller coaster. So
Well,
that's,
well, and so and that kind of so many of these things are simultaneously happening because
mhm.
you mentioned, someone goes into the hospital. I mentioned that too, but I mean, Nikki, do you help people with the paperwork sometimes that's needed when the adult children has to help make medical decisions for their parents?
Yes, and hopefully it's by the time they get to me, it's not at the too late stage. And that's why it's very important for me to get out there into the community and really explain why you just can't wait. Nobody wants to talk about death. I get it. Like when they come to me, it's like it's the most dreaded conversation that we have to have, but we have to have it because a lot of times what will happen is there is that emergency, there is that phone call that they get, and then unfortunately they are incapacitated or they're not able to communicate or sign. And at that point, I can't help them put documents in place. So the most important thing is, hey, the minute that we start to see that there's a slight decline in health, or even if we just want to be proactive and just, I'm a firm believer in if we make things happen and we put them in place, it kind of wards off that problem from happening for a really long time. It's always better to have a game plan instead of waiting until the last minute. But my job is to, if we are able to get documents signed, is to be able to help the families walk through and navigate the type of documents that they're going to need, the decisions that the parent is actually wanting to make sure that the kids execute their exact wishes in full to make sure that they're honoring what their parent is actually wanting. When you wait till a really late situation and the parent can't really communicate or has already kind of given up, they're not a good quality of life. So their wishes are not really going to reflect too much. And then that's unfortunate because then the children usually end up with carrying that grief of, do I really know what mom and dad wanted? Did I make the right decision? It's so much better for the family to do that preemptively so that way we're not having to carry that weight of, oh my goodness, is that really what they wanted, or trying to remember a conversation from like 10, 15 years ago when you might have brought it up because somebody else passed away. So it just makes sense to try to be proactive and put the documents in place so that way we can have an open conversation and make sure everybody's wishes are known and that the documents are going to reflect it. So when that emergency happens, those documents are already in place, and it just allows for a very seamless and smooth process to handle things, and it reduces the stress on everybody.
Yeah, I think that that is really important. And I think some people are reluctant to have the conversations.
Mhm.
Maybe the adult child, the Gen Xer or whoever they are, they don't have to be
Mhm.
Gen Xer, but they're not ready to face that. But sometimes the parent's not ready to face their own mortality or that next stage. Oh my gosh, I have to leave this home that I've loved forever and ever. And I don't know, Julie.
Mhm.
So, like, when people are talking to you, do you have people? It would be ideal if people could talk to you in advance because you help people find where they're going to go after they're going to leave the house that they live in by themselves. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And what's great about what I'm able to do is I can walk with them through the journey. So oftentimes I'll meet families in the hospital, knowing that we're going to go through this process together. It's not
Hmm.
going to be an immediate deal, but I'm going to walk you through the hospital process, the rehab process, and then on from there. The other thing that I think that is important to know is when we talk specifically in terms of assisted living, I think a lot of seniors, a lot of probably Gen Xers think nursing home. Very,
Right.
very, very different things. I tell people this: assisted living is the independence that you want, but with care when you need it. So you have your own apartment. You can come and go as you please. But God forbid you fall, you're not alone. You need help managing your medication because that gets confusing, no problem. There's somebody there to do that for you, somebody there to help cook meals. One thing that thinking along these lines, what do I watch for? And we're talk about the fall. That's an obvious thing to watch for. But other things to keep in mind is, what if you stop by mom and dad's house and mom used to keep an immaculate house and now things just aren't quite the same. The laundry's piling up. The housekeeping's not there because mom can't run the vacuum. Mom can't bend down and pick up things like she used
Hmm.
to. Mom forgot to and left the oven on for 6 or 8 hours. because she's just forgetting things. And so these are things proactively that you can watch for to initiate that conversation of, hey, I'm noticing this is becoming a little bit of a situation, and start to have that conversation, hopefully before a fall or something like that, where then decisions have to be made right away.
Yeah, it would be good to have a list of those kind of identifiers, actually. You might have something like that. We're going to try
Yeah,
and put some information from each of us in the probably in the description below this video, and perhaps definitely in the pinned comments. I'll definitely put everybody's contact information. But if Julie or Nikki have something that they want to share with you guys, like that kind of list of identifiers, or maybe
sure.
the top 3 documents that you might want to, or the top document that you want to have done in advance. We'll put a little blurb in the description below. I I actually I wanted to say something when you were talking about the assisted living versus a nursing home situation, and I think it's also important that the parents know the difference between those things, the skilled nursing, assisted living, and a hotel concierge. Because my mom, she is like, well, they didn't do my laundry today, or they didn't, I mean, it's almost, I'm like, Mom, they're not, it's not a hotel. We can't afford that kind of service here. So, calm down a bit. So dealing with, and I think that's the fun part, that's the funny part. That's the part that the Gen Xers we can poke fun at that kind of stuff, and laugh at some of the situations that happen, the things that kind of make us go, whew, this is driving me crazy, but you can have a little joke and poke fun because I just made you guys laugh. And it is
Yes.
a true story, like it is a true story. I just roll my eyes when she's telling me this on the phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't need to call about that, call the facility about that. I'm just gonna ask Nikki, do you have I did ask you, I did ask you what are some of the biggest mistakes that families make is when they wait too long to plan. Can you think of something else that maybe, if there was a top thing that they needed to do first, if they had this situation happen where they didn't plan in advance, what would you say? Like they get that phone call and now all chaos breaks out and they're just trying to, okay, make sure mom and dad is safe, and make sure that, I don't know, maybe they have a dog, maybe, whatever it is, you take care of that stuff. But what would be the next step for paperwork wise that you would say is the like number one important thing if they had not prepared anything in advance?
Yeah, if they didn't prepare anything in advance, then basically what the kids are going to have to do is, yes, the doctors will allow the children to make the decisions as long as there's no fighting, as long as the kids are in agreement, especially if there's more than one.
Mm,
If everybody's in agreement, or the spouse and the child is like, okay, yep, we're on the same page, this is the care we want, the doctors will listen. But if there is fighting where they're disagreeing on who should make the decisions, you have to remember the laws don't always recognize, just because you're married to somebody, that that person has your best interest. And same thing with the children. So
true.
for the protection of the facility and for the protection of the patient, a lot of times they will get the hospital's concierge, like their advocate, involved to basically step in and say, okay, you guys either need to figure this out, or we're going to take over their care. The advocate is going to step in,
Mm,
and then you'll have to apply for guardianship. And the guardianship is a court process, and courts don't move fast just because you need them to. So you're looking at a 6 to 9 month process.
oh my
In the
goodness.
meantime, the state is making those decisions. So it's very, very important to make sure that we handle the decisions and the paperwork ahead of time, because otherwise what you're doing is you're trying to basically put a puzzle together when you don't know the shape of the puzzle, you don't know what the pieces look like, and you don't even know where to start. So the first thing when there's no documents in place is you have to go to your parents' home and you have to figure out what is going on.
Yeah.
Do they have pets? First of all, can you even get into the home?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't live in the same state, do you have a key?
Right.
So those are like the very, very beginning processes where when I sit down with somebody, I usually tell them, okay, this is going to be a very thorough process, but I want you to know from start to finish, we are going to comb through everything so that way, if we were to blink our eyes and something were to happen, this binder that we're going to put together is going to handle everything. I call it your life playbook, from what accounts you want used to pay what bills. Are bills on auto pay? If not, do you mail a check or do you log into your account to pay those bills? What are the due dates of those bills?
Yeah.
Do you have a contingency plan for medical expenses, for deductibles? Do you pay for your health insurance? Is that on auto pay? Is that during a credit card? You want to know all these things because when that split second happens, you need to make sure that nothing skips a beat. You want to make sure that if you are returning home, your power isn't turned off, nothing's happened to your animals, people can get into the house that need to get in the house. If you do have documents, they can find them, they know where they're at. So it's all about starting with communication and figuring things out from that very beginning point.
Yeah. That having that binder, I mean, is ideal. I mean, that's what you help
Mm-hmm.
put together for people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in my case, my mom did have something on the refrigerator that she always kept there. So
Mm-hmm.
knew that, you know, I knew that that existed. But when she fell, it was an early morning, like 4 in the morning kind of thing. And
Oh.
the neighbor had a key. So she didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to wake the neighbor up. She didn't want to call 911 because how are they going to get in the house without breaking down the door?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the type of home that my mom lives in, it's not a keypad. You can't give them a code. It's a regular lock. And the neighbor had the key, and she didn't want to call the neighbor to wake up the neighbor, who is also an elderly person. And so she laid there on the floor for several hours. And then
Oh.
when she called me maybe around 8 in the morning and told me all this, I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to call the neighbor, and we called 911. And so, yeah, I mean, things that you don't think are going to happen do,
Mm-hmm.
they do happen. And I, you know, in terms of getting them into a place where they feel comfortable, Julie, that is, I'm sure, a challenge when you're talking to people because they don't want to leave their home many times, and they don't they don't like going into a small one bedroom. Or I mean, you can get some fancy places, as you know, but it's
Yeah.
all based on your budget. And so, I mean, are there any words that you would, like to say to somebody about that process of when they choose the place, and how they should kind of tackle that? Because it's a resistance, I guess, is what I'm trying to, that's the word. There's a resistance there. But how do you
Yeah.
help families handle that?
Yeah, and that's the important thing to know is you're exactly right. You're talking to someone who's lived in their home 20, 30 or more years. All their memories are there, and now all of a sudden everything has changed. So not only are they dealing with health challenges, perhaps cognitive challenges, now you're saying that I can't go back to the home that I love. And so from my experience, the best thing I can offer is empathy. I can't change this for you. I am so sorry. I'm sorry you're in this situation. What I can do is tell you some of the pros. Pros being that you're going to have your safety is of utmost concern. As much as you love your memories of your home, your safety and making sure that you have care is of utmost concern. And then we go on to things. What do you enjoy doing? You know what? I've lived by myself for years. I don't really have any friends. I can help with that. We can find you a place where you can meet some new people, maybe pursue some hobbies, something that you've thought about doing but never had the time or didn't even know where to start? Did you enjoy going out to lunch or dinner, but maybe you're not able to drive anymore? These are things that you can enjoy in a senior living community. So we try and present the positive options to that on things that, yes, I know you're going to miss your home, but let me present to you in this new chapter some really exciting things that you're going to be able to enjoy.
Yeah. And so, as the adult child, of a parent going through this and maybe living it could just be an hour away. It could be 1,000 miles away, knowing that the things that Nikki does are in place or can be in place, quicker than if they didn't know that it existed, that they could do these things. And having your assistance in trying to find a place that meets the need, of their parent, that's going to give the Gen Xer, the adult child, a lot of peace of mind too, because they're in panic mode. Or
Sure.
just panic mode and also automatic pilot. Like these things, matter of factly, have to be taken care of now and everything else put aside. There's a lot of stress with that because you want your parent to be happy and safe. And when they're not safe, that's where a lot of the stress, more of the stress comes in. At least it did for me. And I was only an hour and a half away from where, all this was happening for me. And even as a real estate professional, who knows how to clean up a house and make it look pretty and put it on the market. There was a question. I mean, what were we going to do with the house and all the stuff in it? And so I navigated that process. I happened to be an only child, so I didn't have any siblings to help me. So I literally went through the entire house by myself. I had my kids come and help me from time to time go through that stuff. But it was a lifetime of memories, from photos to recipes to things that my mom, she started a love of garage sales. Oh my gosh. At some point in time, and all these things that were, just a quarter here and $1 here, and I mean a bunch of stuff. And it wasn't a cluttered situation, but there was a lot of stuff that didn't have sentimental value for family wise. It wasn't passed down, but it was a lot of stuff to go through.
Yeah.
So, I think order of operation for me was get her safe, make sure the paperwork all simultaneously, safe, paperwork, everything in order. And then I tackled the house, and I had the luxury of being able to take my time doing that. Maybe it took me about 7 months or so to go through it and then have somebody come in and make some minor repairs. In my case, we decided to rent it out to offset the expense of her assisted living facility. And that's what we do. And that's a whole nother topic that we will launch into at another time. But after going through that and then helping other people, other families, especially families that have siblings, like me making the decisions by myself, as tough as it was, I didn't have to argue over anything with anybody. I didn't have to. But when you have the siblings involved and now everybody wants to sell the house and they don't need to rent the house out, and what's the price and what's the thing and what do we do with who's going to go to the house? There's usually, I find that tends to be like one of the adult children is the one that usually takes charge. Is that what you guys see as well? Yeah.
Yes.
2 kids, they can have 5 kids. There's usually one person that kind of takes the lead and does a lot of the heavy lifting. And it can be very difficult to decide what is right to do from a distance. And I think after kind of just going through all these things with you guys, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up here for now, because we have a lot of topics that we're going to discuss over the next several weeks. I would end with myself that, planning early makes things a lot easier, but we don't always have the luxury of doing that. So, we don't want families to do this alone. That's why we've decided to have these conversations out loud. And again, the information to reach Julie and the information to reach Nikki about the things that they do. And if you guys want to add something about that one more time so people don't forget, Julie, if you just want to, mention how they can reach you and you really just do like the greater Tampa Bay area. Is that correct? I don't want to get it wrong, but
So I'm in just outside of Tampa Bay. So that's my base area, but I have actually placed folks out of state.
okay.
So we can do the research. What's great is that for our services, there's no cost to the family. We get paid later down the road. I'm a big fan of transparency because folks want to know costs up front. So that's the
Right.
nice thing, is I can help anywhere and there's no cost. So you can mark that off of the budget list.
Facilities it's almost like a real estate transaction,
Yes.
almost where the facility compensates you so it's not out of the pocket of the family in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's a huge relief. So folks know if they need to ask questions and stuff, there's no cost. I get paid by the community after mom or dad moves in. So no
Got it.
expense there. As far as contact information, I'll be glad to leave that. My website is GT for generational transitions Florida.com. And then my email is my first name, JULIE at GT Florida. And if you want to reach out there, I can give you my direct information and I'll be happy to connect.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that that is in the description below. Always. It will always be there. Everybody will be able to find it. And Nikki?
So I am currently working on my website to add some additional services that I just finished wrapping up my licensing for. So that's under construction right now. But my email is Nikki at elites, ELITE, prep, PREP, services, SERVICES.com.
And you have a LinkedIn page too.
Yes, I have LinkedIn, Facebook. I have them all. So I'll go ahead and share those links with you.
Perfect. I didn't mean to cut you off. You go ahead.
No,
You
that's okay.
continue on. No, I mean, because you do, I mean, your services, you do charge for service, but the way that you charge is a lot different than what a standard attorney would charge because you're a paralegal, is that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So basically, my services are as like a document preparer. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm still providing the same legal documents that you would get at a law firm at a fraction of the price. So my fees are flat fees. So I am very upfront with my pricing. For a full estate plan, it's $2,500. So that's my flat fee, and that includes all documents. So that's going to be, if we're doing the trust, if we're doing a pour over will, we're doing a healthcare directive, a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, their final disposition, which is who gets to handle their remains when they pass, what they're wanting. I do the asset inventory for them. I transfer the property into the trust for them. And then I go through all the nuances of, making sure that we get all of the information written down, like what medicines they take, what doctors they see, what are their passwords, all of those little things that you don't think to remember. That's what I do as well with the clients.
Yeah. And that's hours and hours and hours worth of work right there. And
yeah,
I mean, that is, I mean, if you just, I mean, at $2.50 an hour, $10, 10 hours, it would take, I mean, that's well worth it because you are going to pay a lot more. And plus, I think you can tell by, us talking with each other that everybody truly and genuinely cares about helping the family. It's not just another transaction. It's really, we've gone through it. We're going through it. I mean, I'm not going to speak for everybody else here on the panel, but I've been open and upfront about I've gone through it. I've helped people go through it. I'm still going through it. And so, this is part therapy for me. Honestly, it really is, So, most families don't start thinking about these things until something happens, and we want to start to try and change that. And again, I'm Allison Newlon, broker owner of Platinum Properties of Florida. Thank you for watching, and keep watching because we are going to be putting out more videos discussing, oh gosh, we have 16 different topics that we want to discuss. So there's going to be a lot more information coming your way, and we want to see you back here.